Do you have a final comment on that before we change gears here? Because we're going to change gears.
Absolutely. I'm gonna take this conversation where it should go. Okay.
Make it quick.
Are you a good person, Lou? Are you a good person, Dan? Are you a good person, Mike?
I feel like I'm on Ray Comfort's show.
Basically, the self is God. Okay. We kind of created ourselves through evolution, and we exist to for the greater good. Basically, we decide whether we're going to go to heaven or hell. We decide what's right or wrong, and that's what God is. And if you really want to really break what God really is down to a basic situation, it's a little spark that's in your heart that's blowing in a pot every second. It's a little zap of electricity, and that's as close to God as you're ever going to get. The self is God, though, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, on that topic, we can, like I said, we can continue on and on and on and debate science forever. Let's bring this to a different forum. There's a popular documentary, Zeitgeist. Have you guys ever heard of Zeitgeist?
Yep.
Okay, what this does is the work of Jordan Maxwell and several other historians, which... Okay, this supposedly contests the content of the Bible, the existence of Jesus, the understanding of God and all the sun worship and the whole thing. A lot of people are watching this documentary and they're losing faith in their Christianity after watching this thing. After you put the pieces together, and I've seen the documentary myself, it is very convincing. They make a good argument. I have to say that a lot of the facts were kind of helped along in it, but overall the argument seems somewhat on solid ground. I personally was uncomfortable with that transition after getting that kind of information. So where I want to take this now is who is Jesus? How long, who, what, when, why, and how. Personally, at this point in life, I'm compelled to say that he was a man who walked the earth at some point. His importance and his divinity is still at question in my mind. Do you believe he was a person? And what do you believe he had behind him?
You know, to me it doesn't matter whether he was real or not. I mean, David Koresh thought he was the second coming of whatever. Just because there may be some... Listen, if Jesus was such an amazing person in his time, performing all these miracles, rising from the dead, why was there not one bit of information written about Jesus while he was alive? There's not one word written about Jesus for at least 65 years after his death. Which means, given the average lifetime of the people who lived back then, no person who was alive during the time that Jesus was alive was there.
Nobody wrote about Tesla until Tesla was almost good and dead.
Okay, we're not talking about...
Yeah, actually, a lot of people wrote about Tesla, and he has a number of things
In
that
his
he wrote.
contention with...
He's a well-documented person. However, I think the point Dan's trying to make is that let's assume for a moment we have Jesus' birth records. Let's say we have his birth certificate. Let's say they magically had a camera there, and we have pictures of it. Okay, that doesn't make him God. Okay, just because he says so doesn't make him God. That actually doesn't actually say he is. But anyway, the point is, whether he was a person or not is completely arbitrary. It doesn't mean that, it doesn't mean that there's a God. Is it possible that there was some guy named Jesus 2,000 years ago who said, hey, be nice to everybody? Sure, I have no problem believing that. That sounds like a reasonable plan. But that doesn't necessarily, that doesn't mean that he's in any way related to some sort of God. And just because some people decided to say that he was, I'm not entirely sure why, but that, again, doesn't mean he's a God or that you should believe him as such. I mean, that doesn't mean that you should go to church and drink the blood and eat the body of a 2,000-year-old dead God.
Let's see if he has...
Are we now equating Tesla to Jesus? Just asking.
Not at all.
But back to my original point. If it was so amazing, I mean, healing the ill, making the blind see, making the deaf hear, performing all these wonderful miracles. Again, not one word was written about him until 65 years after his supposed death. That's ridiculous. I'm sorry.
there was oral tradition back then.
Okay.
And people were very intelligent, and their lineage was oral tradition. Okay.
Like now we have newspapers, so
Right.
when Tesla was
Right.
written, what at the
It's
time
text.
where they put on
It's
tablet.
text.
Okay.
Can I just say one thing?
Go ahead.
In a second grader living in modern society in 2009 knows more about nature than the man who wrote the Bible. Who wants this?
And
Well, let's let him finish up his thought before we go back.
Whether you're Christian or Muslim, okay, whatever religion you are, okay, there are faults in all those religions, okay. They're constructed by men for whatever means that religion turned out to be, okay, because they never end up where they started, okay. I think it's more a question about spirituality and not religion, okay. The question is, do people believe in a higher power, or do they believe in evolution? Do they believe it's just we're here and that's all there is to it? You know, we made ourselves. You know, we came from this scum, and now here we are. You know, we're gonna die, and then someone's gonna take our place. That's the question.
Okay.
well, I was going to have a quick response to the idea of the oral tradition, which is absolutely true. In ancient Hebrew society, there was an absolute oral tradition, especially in that particular time. But the people who did not keep an oral tradition, who had very, very, very accurate records of everything, were the Romans, and they were in charge. And if Jesus was around, they're going to be absolute records of Jesus being, one, executed by Pontius Pilate, and two, of all the things that he did.
Well, first of all, we're dealing with a misnomer. There is nobody by the name of Jesus. Jesus is a Greek word. It's a derivative like Zeus. The true name is Yahshua. That's the true Hebrew name of the Son of God. And as far as I'm concerned, there was a living, breathing person. And I think that it's like the game Telegraph, where 20 people sit around a campfire and whisper something else in the other person's ear. And by the time it ends up, you say, the nuclear bombs are about to blow up. By the time it ends up at the other side, it becomes the flowers are pretty. Because that's the way that human nature works. And so that I think that they had a very minuscule situation, and religion at the time was completely against anyone completing to have a God consciousness, which I believe in, that we all attain the God consciousness. We are born and die 8,000 times before we attain that consciousness level. And that's basically the situation. We all are God, whether you're an atheist or not. You decide what's right or wrong. You decide whether you're going to go to heaven or hell. And you guys are all going to go to heaven and nirvana next. This isn't your basic makeup is contradictory to what your beliefs are.
Okay. Now, Paul, I want to mention something. You said that was evolution or God. And though I'm atheist, I don't agree with that. You can have evolution and believe in God also. There are many people who do. Matter of fact, we have a local man who's very famous for that. We have Kenneth Miller. He's a scientist and professor at Brown University. He believes in God completely, but he's an evolutionary biologist. So you can believe in both. It's just how far you're willing to say that your religious doctrine is not correct. Now, as for what you had just said about, I'm sorry, now I've lost track, Charles. What was it?
Give me $10.
So, what was your point again?
Basically, your makeup, you contradict yourself. Your basic makeup. Your basic makeup has, in your thoughts and your ideals, have Christianity, have different forms of religion based in them, to the fact that you preach this thing because you're a good person. If you really believed there was no God, you'd go around killing people and you'd have no heart. You'd cheat everybody every deal you could. You'd go around robbing banks.
Okay, well, actually, I have evidence to prove that completely wrong. See, you're making an assertion with no supporting evidence. But I do have evidence that you're incorrect, because in the world, if you look at the UN reports, there's actually a litmus test they do on all the nations as for how many people are working, what's the health, what's the happiness, and so on and so on. All the nations agreed on this. You'll see that the nations that rate the highest are the nations that have the highest amount of atheists in them. They are the Netherlands, Switzerland, and so on, Japan. They are the ones that have the lowest amount of crime, the lowest amount of deaths of children, the lowest amount of illiteracy.